Following up on a few things last week, the person who's doing her dissertation on Ken is Noi Noi Wilson. So hopefully in a couple years we will have that document. And her husband is Charlie. They live on a big island. So the other thing is we were talking about Ken and his 156 techniques. So Nalohini, we get 35. From Kalama, we get 11. From Kohio, we get 3. From Harris, we get 4. Kulawaimaka, we get 6. So we get 59 that way. And then in one of his earliest tapes, when he was living up where Laliha Hospital is now, there was a border in which he learned 2 techniques. And then from Okazaki, he had learned 46 techniques. So I've been able to trace 107 of his 156. So there's still 49 that I have not been able to fill in that blank as far as that's concerned. Anybody else? If you look at Nalohini in his the one listing in Ken's material, they list the 35 techniques, but if you look at his thing that Kekahuna had translated, there's some other names, but not necessarily a description of the techniques themselves. So I'm just following up on that. And as far as his genealogy, I haven't went through a couple boxes, haven't found everybody else. But the thing is that his grandfather came in 1868, married local girl, correction. His father was half Japanese, half Hawaiian. His mother was half German, half Hawaiian. So on the mother's side, that is where her father was the German captain that ran aground in Puna. Don't know the exact date of that. So you can see where the Ken's grandfathers had married, local women, to set up. The father, half Hawaiian, half Japanese, the mother, half German and half Hawaiian. So that's where he gets, quarter Japanese, quarter German, and, half Hawaiian on that side. His grandfather, when you look at the manifest in 1868, when the first 150 some odd Japanese came over, his grandfather is listed there. It starts with a T. I have it written down. So it's interesting how they got the Ken. So still looking through some of that material. So any questions so far?
None for me.
Olohe, you mentioned George Kalama. How much techniques you learn from?
What's that?
George Kalama.
He got 11 from Kalama.
Oh. And who else was some of the other people that you mentioned?
Well, Kohio, he learned 3. And then Annie Harris, that's a female, he learned 4. And Kulawaimaka, he learned 6. So from that, you get 59. And then I think I've given you a handout listing those 59 techniques, in there. And then when he was real young, living with his parents in Laliha, the border, there were 2 techniques, he never described it. And then Okazaki, he learned the 46. So, the 59 from those, and then the 48 from Okazaki and that other living. So that comes out to 107 out of the 156 he was supposed to have known. So a few of the techniques that may have been in the Science of Lua done by Kekahuna contains a few other names, but the problem is, it doesn't explain how to execute them. It just gives you a description of the effects or the impact of the techniques themselves. And, when we went through, we ended up with 360 or whatever. But, these are part of them that we went through the Pukui dictionary and, must have gone through each page too many times. And we underlined, each one. Basically it just said, Lua I, period, nothing else. And then a couple explain, if you go into Keiko Haupio, there's a couple, techniques in there that are described. And I think, anyway, when you look in the book, they normally reference where they were obtained from. So, at least you can go back. And then if you look in Lucia's stuff, she's got about 420 or something. So I don't think they're all referenced, but, she's got a list. So, but again, in hers, it really doesn't explain how to execute them. I think her interpretations are more literal than, pretty much all you can do. Like, again, researcher versus a practitioner, or researcher/practitioner.
Question, Olohe?
Yep.
How much duplication is there, from all the different sources of the ones that the actual technique?
Well, like Ailima Iki, right? We have 4 different names for the same technique. Malolo Kai Kai, Ailima Iki, Pi'inaya, and one other. And just hitting the nose, there's about 11 different, eyes, to hit the nose, from a punch to a slap to a palm hit, a shudo hit, so. And in the literature, it basically says a lot of the techniques may have been the same, but depending upon the school, if they followed the animals of the sea or the land or plants or some other, they may have had different names, except that the actual techniques themselves, were the same. I've gone through to, reconcile, part of the 59, there's a couple, but, like I'm saying, if you look at the, hitting the nose for one, the target's the same, but, the application of what part of your body do you use to execute the technique, and also the impact. So some of the impact of the blow, in essence, expresses, the resulting damage. So that's pretty much it. And I think last week we mentioned that, there's a lot of targets, or a lot of vital techniques, joint, as I go in and explain, right, we got 18 joints, right? From your ankles to knees, to your hips, to your fingers, to your toes, to your wrists, to your elbows, to your shoulders, to your neck, to your back, upper, lower, middle. So, just by executing whatever on each one of those, you could end up with 18. Or if you were to take every vital organ and hit it a certain way. So I think with those, instead of having, flowery names and anything, it's just simply, if you're going to kick to the stomach, fine. If you're going to kick to the groin, those are simple. Or kick to the knee, we have some of those already listed. But I think it would, behoove the group to start, taking the targets out there. If there's no eyes that we're aware of, then I would just start using the Hawaiian terminology in which you decide to execute. If it's a palm hit, if it's an open, if it's a backhand, that would be, I think, something we should do. Next. Any other follow-up? Everybody is. So we're down to what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So any announcements, anything else, or any?
We got 10 people on now.
10, okay. Looks like. Okay, one of the things Ali'i did with some of the people he trained, he took all the different forms or weapons that I showed him, and he took the first 10 movements of each area and had them learn all of those. So I thought it would be fun to work with the group and start sharing some of the other, at least, like you said, the first techniques. So if you got paper and pencil, the first one is the palm set. And that is a right palm strike to the solar plexus. The second part of that is a 90-degree twist to the right. So you hit the solar plexus and execute a turn to the right. The third one is you take your right backhand and you strike the shoulder joint. Then you do a double palm strike to both shoulders, driving the left shoulder rearward, which means you're executing more power with your right palm than you are with your left. So in essence, you're turning the body sidewards. And then number 5 is you reverse the double strike, bringing the shoulders back to their normal positions. Okay, so what you're doing is you're hitting, you're turning, you're hitting, you hit the palm, and then you reverse. So if I'm looking like so, I would be sitting at 1, then you're 2, then you're 3, then you're 4, and then you reverse 5. Okay, and then what you do is you just reverse it on the left side. So the left palm strike, the 90-degree turn, come back, slap, double palm strike to the shoulders with the left side going further back, and then you reverse. I think I've shown that some. So, like I said, it's the hit, the turn, the slap, the push, the reverse. And left, turn, hit, push, and the other is reverse. Okay, so keeping with that, so those are the first 10 movements of the palm set. And then the next one is the stone club. That is where it's like pretend you're holding a bar of soap. So what you do is with the right hand, straight strike to the solar plexus. As soon as you hit in, it's pushing down. Then you whip coming back number 2 to hit the opponent in the throat. So it's a hit, whip up, then you whip down to hit the opponent's groin. So, what you're doing here is you're hitting in, strike, whip down, and then from here you're whipping across to hit their left floating rib. So when you whip across, then you come back and you punch. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, then you hit the spleen. Okay, so again, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 when you strike there. Then from here, after you've come around in reverse, you hold the opponent, then you come around the back and you strike the individual in the middle of the spine. And then from there, that's number 6. Number 7, you hit the left kidney. Number 8, you hit the base of the skull. Number 9, you strike the left scapula. And then number 10, you strike on the top of the left deltoid muscle. Okay, so when you're going, it's your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you hold, then spine, kidney, we're at the kidney, then the base of the skull, scapula, and then what you do is you come on the top of the left deltoid. Okay, so those are the beginning, the first 10. What's this magic? The Stone Club has 65 techniques in it completely. The palm set has 50 plus. Now, the D-rings. So these are just this is the D-ring with the teeth going in one direction. So when you're using the right, all of your teeth are cutting as you're coming in with your blow. So the thing to do is, the targets are the deltoid, bicep, elbow, wrist, back of the tricep. Okay, for your double strikes, we like to go in to cut the lats and come back and cut the traps coming in, also cutting up the center of the back with the double. So your hits are going up, then you cross and take out the two kidneys in reverse. Also, when you're coming down, you're hitting the hamstrings high and then taking the hamstrings out just above the knee. Again, as we did the Phoenix, we know the two areas of the calf, also taking out the Achilles tendon. So with the double rings, so you start from here, you cut up from the stomach, the pico, going up through the deltoids. You reverse 2 coming down. And then from here, you do a slicing across. So the left hand is ripping down, the right hand is ripping up. And then that's 3. And then 4, you're ripping up the other way. Okay, so you're going 1, 2, 3, 3, 4. So from there, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you're coming across the deltoid. So you're ripping down across the pectorals, coming in, down toward the pico. As soon as you come back down, you reverse and you come straight up the front of the body using the nipples as your target. And then from there, as you come up, you come right across the throat and you take out all of the neck muscles, your arteries, your carotid, and the other. So again, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, coming 5, ripping up to the throat, and then you're coming across the eyes. Okay? Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 is the deltoids, rip up is 6. 7 is the eyes. And then from here, it's an inward taking out the neck muscles. You reverse and you cut the neck muscles again. So like I said, ripping up, down, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then, it's an inward cut, then an outward cut. And then you recut the double deltoids. So that's with the D-rings. So you're going up, down, okay, 3, ripping across, making an X. Okay, that's 4. And then 5, if you're coming down, and then you cut down, then you rip up to the throat, coming across the eyes, and then, the eyes, then rip out, rip in across against the neck muscles. And then from there, you flip out and you rip up the deltoids. Okay, make sense? And then with the single shark tooth, the one where you take the white shark and it's got that small piece of wood that you hold with the little noose. Well, the idea here is that if I'm pretending the thing is, I hold it like so, right? The tooth is sticking out this way, the noose is going over the top. And then from there, one is you're striking the left brachial anatomy, and then from there you're cutting down the pectoral muscle, the left side. So you're in 1, 2, and then you're sliding up to engage. Number 3 is the left carotid and jugular vein. So what you're doing is you're poking, cutting, and then it's a twist so that the blade goes in, slicing straight in. And then 4, you turn so the blade is going straight. Got it? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you hold the right side of their face and you go in to the mastoid. You go into the ear, twist so you have fun with the inner. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is mastoid, 6 is the ear, 7 is you twist. Okay, the 7 is you go behind where the equilibrium is, and then you go a little further back, so you're going in right about C1, brainstem. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then what you do is 9 is you take the point between the earlobe and the back. That's when we do the phoenix, the double. You hit, turn out, and you're hitting. So you're hitting that point and you're twisting in. Okay, brachial, pectoral, jugular, turn, mastoid, ear, turn, the behind the, I forget the name of it, but the equilibrium part, you go in to hit the brainstem and turn in from there, and then you end up hitting the point in the middle of the neck. Okay? So those are some of the 10 to share with you, okay? Go over next week, or we still have 2 sets of the Ihe techniques. We still have the Pohoa. We still have the reverse Neva. We still have the thumb set. Okay, so we've got the double rings, we got the single, we've got the stone club, we've got, a few of the other sets of the first 10 movements and stuff. So that way it'll just give you some idea of what, some of the other areas are. Any questions on any of that? Or I know it's brand new and, we're not standing in front of each other, but at least, you can record it, and then we can start, when we get together again, start incorporating, going through the moves themselves.
Or Olohe Jerry, or
Yep.
For the single shark tooth, that one, it was either a great white tooth, or did he use other materials for making that?
You needed the great white because you wanted at least 2 inches more. You wanted to be able to penetrate to get in to the vital areas and things.
Okay.
Because of the whites that I've seen, that are in the museum, there are at least 2+ inches in there. If you get 3 or 4 inches, that's a little too cumbersome. You lose, the effectiveness. You can do some damage, but you lose the speed and the accuracy of hitting your targets. I had a friend who just got a piece of wood and took a piece of plastic and just cut out the V and, glued it in there. Instead of leaving the edges sharp, he just sanded or filed to make the points and the edges smooth to, practice. So, there's, trying to find white shark teeth that big, kind of hard. Been trying for years. So, in the interim, some people have taken cow bone. Part of Kalakawa's group, secret society, a lot of the teeth in there are all made out of cow bone. There were no whites in there, but they do have a couple actual with the whites. So, any other?
Yep. We have the very experienced tooth maker, so we could probably
The dentist.
dentist probably
He's
make
tooth
it.
fairy.
What's interesting? The tooth fairy. What's interesting, in '93 when I was on the Shark Task Force, Bill Patey he was asked by herb honey for a set of the left and right side and center of the tiger. Because what he had seen, I don't know if it was Liliuokalani or whoever, but what she had was she had a necklace, and the backside of the tooth was covered with gold with, you know, a small loop, and all of them were connected so that when she wore them, all the teeth were symmetrical to the middle. Anyway, all I know is that I gave it to Bill Patey. Bill Patey gave it to Herb Connie. And from what I understand, Herb Connie, I don't know if he ever made, you know, a replica, but he had a dentist friend, and the dentist used those teeth to, you know, make duplicate shark teeth, you know, from whatever, because that was a 13-footer, the shark. So those teeth are about, you know, inch and an eighth. So those were fairly decent. Back then, if you hit a 12 or 13-footer, you could get about 90 to 100 good teeth. You know, there's 4 or 5 layers in there. The first 2 layers are okay. The other ones, you have the shape, but it's all milky inside. They hadn't fully developed. So when I first looked at there, I said, oh my God, I have 1 million teeth. Until you could pick them up and squeeze them and nothing happened.
Olohe, can you elaborate a little bit on how to hold the single tooth? I think a bunch of people here haven't heard, you know, how a lot of times people thought you put it on the inside of your hand, so it's sitting in your palm. But can you talk a little bit more about how you really should hold it for those who haven't heard?
Well, like, you know, right now, what I have, I don't know if you can't see it all. Can you see this fairly well? This is just a regular highlighter. So if you look at the highlighter, you know, the thing is that the teeth would be sticking out like so, and then the loop. So you would stick your thumb and hold the actual weapon like so, where the tooth is from here. So again, if you take the principle of the American Indian, the arrow that was straight on is for the human, and when the arrow was turned to the side, it was for the animal. So that way you could penetrate the actual rib cage. So for our application, this is a very short jabbing weapon. It can cut either direction. It can also burrow into vital areas. But this primarily, when you're working around the chest cavity, the neck, the head, those would all become the targets that you would go. I mean, I have a whole set, you know, going through the lower legs, front and back, and all of that. But, you know, that you can learn, you know, the practicality of doing that, unless you're on the ground and you wanted to open up somebody's calf, or, you know, open up their thigh, or, you know, take out the jugular, and not jugular, but taking out the femoral. So when you're, you know, you're really looking to the front, you want to penetrate the rib cage. You want to hit the various nerves. You also want to hit the lats under the armpit, cutting and taking that, going into the deltoids, into the brachial, separating the tricep and bicep, you know, from the inner. The again, all of your neck area, you know, your mastoid behind, also your ears, taking the big muscles behind your neck that run from the back of your ear down to the front, taking out the vagus, you know, your rhomboid muscles, you know, back of the scapula, taking your traps, hitting C1, C2, more for the muscles, ligaments, and tendons. You know, bicep, taking out the tendons, ligaments, forearm. Also, what's fun is when you're playing, you hit somebody's hand and you come from behind and separate the nerves in the back of your wrist, not your wrist, but back of your hand. So there's a number of that. So let's see, we just had 2 phone calls from somebody timing in. It was interesting. So anyway, you know, those are some of the, you know, there's also a double, you know, but for me, the more practicality is just a single use of the single shark tooth weapon, because I like to grab and hold in concert using that weapon. You know, if we're going to put on some martial art demonstration, you know, we can get fancy and use the 2 of them, but, you know, the practicality, I would rather keep one in my right hand and use my left hand for acquiring or, you know, setting up targets and things that way, or to steady the person so that when you penetrate and you want to dig and go in, you can go ahead and do that. Are you going to say grace? Olohe is in his,
No idea.
yeah, we talked about the Pope before. We're all going to be baptized tonight. Any other further explanation on the single shark tooth?
I have a question. Could you show the highlighter again? Okay, so when it's, the highlighter is in your hand, right? Is your palm facing up or is it facing?
What I'm doing is it's just like a vertical punch. So what I'm doing is resting it on top and securing it.
Oh, okay.
So it's like so your finger isn't pointing. You just make a fist.
Okay.
And it's like a cigarette lighter.
Yes.
And you put it, then the little noose goes over this, and then the tooth is sticking out.
Okay.
So this is where the tooth would be.
Would be on this side?
No, it would be right in the middle here. So what you're doing is you're centering it. So the wood in which it's attached to is equal distribution on either side of the thumb. And then the shark tooth is a V pointing. So your thumb would be pointing to the end of the V. So all of your targeting, your thumb would be your reference point for your hitting, because 2 inches out from there would be the shark tooth itself. Does that help explain it?
Yes, it's a little more clear for me. I'm just very visual. So,
No. It's
yeah, so I appreciate it.
not too many white sharks floating around here where we can, exercise that privilege. But I talked to Pat, the guy that used to do all the basket work. Years ago, he had brought in a lot of whites. He's got a handful of them now, but they're, I think, smaller. So I have to have Sonny talk to him to see if there's some 2-inch ones. If not, got to go and just make a training aid out of plastic or aluminum on that. So anyway, that's, and again, using the double D rings, you can get one direction, going to your left, going to your right. You can have also the D ring where they go left and right from the center on others. The way you use that one is completely different than the ones that go in one direction. But a lot of those weapons are in the figure 8, the infinity work as you're cutting. So you're cutting.
I didn't catch that. You can also try spelling it.
Little phone. Any other questions on any of those weapons or any other subject matter before I go jump into something else?
Yeah, Olohe, so the double D rings. After you went across the eyes, you went across the throat.
Right. So
Okay.
It's 1, 2, right? So you cut up, and then it's you make the X, you're cutting, and then the deltoids, you're coming down, and then you're going up, you're cutting out, and then you come across the eyes, and then you rip. Because a lot of it is to get the weapon to cut for you, you can cut in one, you got to reverse to come back. Because if you're cutting out and you come in, all you're going to do is rip and tear, jagged. So if you just want to cut and sever, that's where you have to have the directional. So if I'm cutting in and I want to cut out, I have to reverse going out. Because if I cut in this way and I come back, the back of the teeth is going to get caught. You're going to get stuck. And you may even dislodge some teeth. So again, you're not going against hard, bony targets and stuff. Or if you are, it's going to make a slight, you're not trying to cut bone. What you're trying to do is to either hit the nerves, hit the blood, going or coming, and you want to look at ligaments and tendons when, you're doing the slicing and dicing with that. The women also had the o'u, the short, just like the hair pick. Those are nice, putting up under the throat, through the ear, up the nostril, in the armpit, into the C1, C2 area. You don't see it too often, but I mean, it's a unique weapon in of itself that, the females, there's not 100 techniques, but of the techniques that that's available, you can do enough damage with those. If you watch Chinese and stuff or the Japanese where they play with the chopsticks and, use it that way, that would, be some of the targeting that the o'u could also utilize. Any other continuation?
Olohe, I did have one more question.
Sure.
Earlier you talked about you would prefer, I think I heard you say this, so you would prefer to hold your weapon in your right hand. Is that because you're right dominant, or should a Lua practitioner learn to be able to strengthen both sides?
Ideally, like I said, I'm dominant right. I use that. At this stage of my life, I'm not, worried about using my left hand. But if somebody were younger, they should be able to train to use the weapon either left or right. In case you get your right hand injured, you can transfer to your left. My thing is, because a lot of this weapon, if you're just going in and you don't hold your target, you lose the effectiveness. So the thing to do is you want to penetrate. So as I grab the head or the neck, one is coming in, the other's going. So I want to be able to, or if I'm grabbing the arm and I want to cut the bicep, tricep, so, that is the reason. So the left hand is a lot of times used as support, so that when you insert the shark tooth weapon, the shark tooth itself, in order for it to maximize the damage and to penetrate to the depth you want to. Because if I go into somebody and they feel it, they're going to back away. So that's why I try to steady the individual in that case.
Mahalo, Olohe.
Okay. If you see my finger by my nose, it's not going in, it's just going up to the side. And no, I'm not Santa Claus, and I'm not going to end up going up the chimney either, so no worry there. Okay, any other? So, going through Ken's material, what are the various weapons that we're aware of? You guys have seen the Black Book, some of you. So, there's a listing of the different types of weapons. Anybody want to go through some of them, or you want me to go ahead and elaborate?
There's Neva, Pahoa, Ko'o, Ihe, Pololu, and again the Ikoi.
Okay, like you said with the spear, we have the regular two types of Ihe, right? One is for throwing, one is for fighting. And you have various sizes of the pololu going anywhere from 10 or 12 to up to 20, 22 feet. The longest pololu that I've seen in the Bishop Museum is about 1810. And you asked me why. When I was volunteering there, I had to measure everyone, and I had to measure the dimensions and weigh all of them. So that is why I'm aware of what's there. The other one is the ma'a, okay, the sling. Also the sling stone. Okay, we mentioned the pohoa, we have the leo mano, and the various other types. We've been talking of a few other shark tooth weapons. The clubs, the war mat, which is the wai kaua, also the armor, which Ken described examples, the mats across the chest wearing, or the dog teeth, to protect the calf, things of that sort. They also had the bow and arrow. And people look at the bow and arrow. So in Ken's material, there are two. David Kupihea mentioned the use of it. And also Ken mentioned the E family from Hilo. They were the ones designated to use the bow and arrow in warfare. Also, if you look in Keiko Haupio, when they were lining up for the Battle of Iao, they were at least one or two, they describe them as battalions of women from the Big Island that were archers. I've only seen 2 or 3 places where, the bow and arrow was actually used as a weapon. Most of them, the story goes they were used for shooting rats and stuff, but, that's one story. The other, the ikoi pikoi, you mentioned that. The thing which you also have seen to some degree, if you take like a river rock that's made like so, they wrap it the upper half of the stone, and it's maybe about 2 or 3 feet long, and they use that as a weapon going back and forth, or they whip it around and they send it as part of their artillery. So if you the ma'a, you send that stone, but this other one, it's like a deck of cards. So the upper half would be, they would use the cordage to wrap around it, and then you would have about so much and swing it and send it, a couple hundred meters, into the enemy. So it would be just like a mortar, so it's an indirect fire. So it goes up in an arc and then lands down. Also, there was a blowgun, according to Ken. Limited use, but mostly, with the, what do you call it? The palm frond and the coconut make the ridge. And then they would have a little moss or something in the back. And then the tip of it, they would use poison. So for those of you, where did the Hawaiians acquire some of their poison, other than the Europeans? There was one place located on Maui, where? If you go to Hana Bay in Hana, on the left-hand side going back toward Keanai, there was a special seaweed that they had that they would use that on the tip of their spears as well as the blowgun. I'm just mentioning the, have I seen it written anyplace else where they use them? No, these are coming out of Ken's material. Also,
Olohe, can I ask you a question? Do we know what variety of limu it was? No.
Yeah, I have the name written someplace.
Okay.
There was a doctor in the early 60s who was head of EMS, and he went to Hana and did find it. And the couple times that we did go to Hana, talking to Bully and some of them, they had heard about it and they knew generally where it was located. Where Mitchell stayed a couple times on the left side of the bay going toward Wainapanapa, there was a condominium and stuff. Someplace in that area is where Bully had mentioned that you could find it. But again, don't know what you're really looking for.
Got it.
They were individuals. And then go ahead.
No, mahalo.
Yeah. Also, they had an axe or hatchet, the koi. That was also considered a weapon. You mentioned the cane that was there. They also used boulders or stones. They used logs. They used cord, and they used the net, upina. So, those are the 19 things that Ken had mentioned in the Black Book. But he categorized them, by different categories. So I think the most common things are, if you're from the Big Island, their strength was the spear, the ability to dodge, the ability to catch, to deflect, to return. The reason they didn't use the ma'a and stuff is they didn't have sufficient. The stones and things that they had were too soft. So that is why Maui specifically, and others which had the better rocks and what have you. The funny thing is that you had a nice stone quarry up in Mauna Kea, and those rocks are beautiful, but for some reason probably they were too hard to work on. Anybody been to Pi'ilani Heiau in Hana?
Yes, Olohe.
You've been to Bully's house or past it?
Bully, is his last name? Ho'opai, no.
Well, anyway, this is where Jim Neighbors used to live, the 500 acres.
Oh, okay.
Down from there, there's a back road about a couple hundred meters from the ocean that leads to a large, if you go in Pi'ilani Heiau and you go up to the Kahakaloa side and you look down, the cliffs are about 15, 20 feet. And down in there, 15 to 20 feet, rock bottom. And that is one of the areas where the people from Maui would get all their sling stones, because the wave action and the rocks would work back and forth on the rocky bottom. So Bully's house was past that going toward Keanai, and there was a big river, and there must have been billions of rocks on there. And a little further down, there was a swimming hole where a waterfall, maybe about 30 feet, came over the side. And probably maybe about 1,500 square feet round was the swimming hole, and that was just up from the beach. So I tried to find sufficient rocks, but after looking at a billion stones that were too big, and I didn't have my 6-inch grinder with me to make something useful, I gave up. But that is one of the areas where the Maui used to get the sling stones. And I think Richard, at one time, there was somebody on Kauai that found a whole collection of ma'a stones from the raw material and in various stages of making them look like footballs. I think the museum has that, but Richard has an article. I have it someplace, so I'll go try to find it. Anyway, sorry for interrupting.
No, Olohe, thank you. I was going to ask you about another question about clothing. You know, you were saying that in battle that they would wear, I guess, fiber or mats to, I guess, you know, blunt the blows or to detract from that, deflect from that. But
Well,
there's also the story about the Olohe, you know, going there, you know, hairless and oiled up and nothing on. Sometimes only a malo. So was that only the Olohe? Was it like people who, you know, prided themselves in battle that they wouldn't be scarred, that had the less garments? What was the kind of the rule?
Well, it's a lot of that hinges when Cook first landed on Kauai and he wanted to scare the people. What they did was they tucked birdshot, not bucked bird. So the Hawaiians got their mats and held them up. And when Cook's men fired the birdshot to scare them, you know, the mats were thick enough to deflect any of the birdshot. Later, when some people tried that on the Big Island and they used the real ball ammunition, those mats didn't do any good. The other parts that there were some individuals that would wear the mat primarily in their trunk so that they would protect their stomach area, intestines, from getting cut with the shark-toothed weapons. The problem, I mean, to me, the other thing that's always interesting is Sam Ka'ai and his, you know, band of chickens, you know, when they wear all the rain gear.
Yes, Olohe, I do.
Right. The problem is, if you're going to go out and fight with that, you know, forget it. You know, it's just too cumbersome. You're not going to be able to, you know, fight, maneuver, do whatever the case may be.
You're going to fuck the chickens.
Using the war mat to wrap it around your stomach, again, you're going to lose your flexibility, your movement. You know, you may get some protection, but, and other stories and other things that I have read or heard, you know, the thing to do is you wanted to have the least amount. So those accounts where the Olohe would grease their bodies and everything else was done so that they could not be gripped easily by their, you know, their opponents. Also, there's a book that has all these various types of hairdos. I don't know if you've seen it. Some of them look like birds and robins and what have you. So, and some guys would have ponytails and all of this. You know, the problem is in battle, any hair that you had was easy to grab and use to control. So, you know, that is why the Olohe, as the Saris go, would pluck, take out all their hair. The thing to do is to go there without any, you know, for a better term, jock strap or whatever you want to call it, would be kind of senseless. You know, if you're fighting in the cold and you're not endowed, you know, a malo wouldn't matter. But, you know, if it's hot weather and everything else, you want to wear a poale, you know, malo in there. But again, the idea of greasing it and taking away your hair was just to eliminate as many parts of your body that the opponent could grab hold of you, by which they could hold you or, you know, hit. So, you know, that is why for me, a lot of the hits and things I like to do are, you know, taking that into consideration. You know, I'm not really interested in grabbing, or if I am, so, you know, the hits and other things of that sort are, you know, more hits, not the grabs and things of that sort. So,
you know, that makes sense, Olohe, when you think about like Kamehameha's, I think one of his warrior fleet called Kipu'upu'u, they were very fast runners. I guess that's what and you can't really run very fast if you have a war mat, you know, wrapped around you.
Correct.
As you're moving from one place to another. So, thank you, mahalo, Olohe.
Okay. Anybody else want to enter in? Everybody's jumping up and down to enter in.
I had another question, Olohe, if
Sure.
no one's gonna go. I wanted to just if you could just talk a little bit about, when we talked to Olohe Mitch, she was saying that female female warriors had their own aumakua. It was popoki wahine, and they had different, it was different from the men. But I guess now as we're trying to recreate this, it hasn't really taken off. What do you think's the reason, for that?
I think, first of all, if we go back of the stories and other things that we're aware of, is that if you look at how, the hierarchy was set up, we know the women, the higher ranking women and things of that sort were taught some of the women's lua primarily to protect themselves against individuals who wanted to, take advantage of them. That's one category. The other category is where the husbands, for a better term, would actually train their women to do battle. They normally were not experts per se, but we know of a number of stories where going into battle, if the husband had fallen, the woman would go in, one, to protect the husband, or if the husband died, would then take his place in battle. The thing, if we look at the Big Island, and it's united, 6 districts, which could be broken down into one of the stories, the 600 subsets. So in there, you always, the smaller the unit, the lesser of a chief. But, the chief at that level is primarily, one of the jobs was, when called upon to bring the warriors, he had to spend enough time so that the warriors he brought were, could carry their own water, for a better term. And in there, where the training had been done at the lower levels, then it was the men themselves who would then go ahead and train their spouses, for a better term, in some of the war arts in that sense. Now, if we go back to the Ali'i, is that they were taught enough to protect themselves, not to be warriors in battle, but more for self-preservation. We know that the Kahekili's wife was a noted warrior. In Kamakau, there's one line that explains it, but you see very few stories of, their ability. There's some chants that elaborate a little further. So, that, from a historical perspective, that is, where the women were brought in. Now, if we're looking at today, the things are, look how many women have actually made it. Debbie is the only one so far that we're aware of. Michelle from Saul's area, is one.
Right.
When we first started class in the early 90s, the 3 women that I saw that had the greatest potential, if they wanted to carry it out, Debbie was one, Kahali, Puna Richardson Naki was the other, and then Mahoy, daughter. In the beginning, they were the 3 that, and then a little later on, there was a girl from Maui named Hui, that was, how would you put it, excelled in the use of the ikoi pikoi. And we thought, that was another, potential to do that. A number of the women that I've spoken to over the years, what they would really like to do is to have some female obtain their rank and then set up their own school, to go ahead and learn and, work with the women and do all of that. But there really hasn't been. Debbie, we were thinking that she was going to step up at a time to do that, but given all of her other duties and responsibilities, she does come out when classes were put on and everything else. So, thank goodness for that. But for the women, like I said, they're looking for somebody to step up. And I think, there's interest, for that, but until, that happens, I don't think, that's where it stays.
So they weren't. So they were more in a supportive role in traditional times than Olohe, and
Right.
and
Yeah.
the thought here is maybe they could step up into an Olohe position. It's just that in modern times it just hasn't yet happened.
Other than Debbie and,
Other
given
than-
Debbie's schedule and what have you, she's been unable to, devote other time and things to do that. The other thing is, the primary role of the female before was, the medic for better, for caring. And then the other thing is being part of the logistics, the supply train, all of that other, that is where they were used primarily when they were part of the, the war party. But like I said, if their significant other got hurt or injured or killed, then some of them would step up. And what's interesting is from Ken and a few others, they're saying that the women's level of Lua was actually deadlier than what is mostly taught to, the regular male. Main thing is that, in those days, the women were not as big and strong. You get Kahumano, that's a different story, or Ruth, that's, Ruth at 400 pounds, I don't think you want to go tangle with her. And so, like I said, their primary was more being part of the war party in the first aid and supply train, and then if there was a need to jump in to help and assist. Now, in the Battle of Nuuanu at the park, Queen Emma, the park, that is where the Oahu and the Big Island women components battled. The Hawaii warriors were victorious, and that is where Kaiana taught his wife and a number of women to be sharpshooters. And then when you read Keiko Haupio, when they were putting up the battle lines in the Waiahu and that other area, they were the women archers that were brought in. So, those are some examples of, where you can find some of that information.
Mahalo, Olohe. Thank you.
Olohe, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Okay, so my understanding is that the husband would teach the wife, but what if she was hapai? Would she be considered kapu? Would she still engage in the practice up until she hanau?
I have to go back to, Charles Ken's rationale. I wasn't there, so it's really hard to say. But from a practical standpoint, I think, the most important party was the female. They were the ones who, carried on the lineage. And as they're going through there, I think at that point it was more important to care for oneself for preparation for delivery. And also, so, most times they weren't menstruating at that point. So, that eliminates those periods of time where they would be intervening. I would generally say as a rule, no, but, they may have been some exceptions. But I think, depending upon the rank and who the genealogy on both sides was, if it was significant genealogy, I think at that point it would be more important for her, not for her warring capabilities, but more for the giving birth to the male or female, the significance. 1800, the average lifespan was 30. Not to say people didn't live longer, but shorter, and most of the females were giving birth 11 and 12. Males, 13 or 14 from what Ken had written, but, the women, 11, 12 years old. And what Kamehameha gave to one of the British person, an 8-year-old female as a wife. I think there's some story that I remember reading, but, if you read Ripley's Believe It or Not, there've been some people that age that have given birth, but I don't believe, that was generally possible back then. So, like I said, that's more, generalization. It's not go swear in a Bible type stuff. It's just, just more general, attempt to answer that question.
Mahalo, Olohe.
So we're down, what, to 6 people?
I think there's like 12 of us here.
Oh.
Yeah. There's a bunch.
I only have the top part of the screen.
Okay. It depends on what device you're using, but yeah, there's a bunch, so it's good turnout.
Got chat, share screen. Anyway, it's all right. The old saying, beauty's only skin deep, ugliness goes all the way to the bone. So, you want to go over the Lua training phases?
Yes, that
Yeah,
sounds
yes,
good.
please.
Okay, most of this
That's good, Olohe.
came from probably of the material. P&I probably had the best generalization, in his material of putting together, the phases. Okay, basically from what we put together is upon birth, they were treated with herbs. They were given sweet potato juice through the navel, top of the head, rubbed with kukui and coconut oils, massage, lomi lomi, taken to the seashore, placed in the sand, up to waist to strengthen their limbs, learn to swim, run, and jump. Only vegetable foods, seaweed, drinks only coconut water and spring water. Learns breathing exercises. When boy reaches 6 or 7, serious training begins. That's generally moving from the woman's house to the men's house. Lays on stomach, takes deep inhale, raises body, weight off a mat, learns anatomy at the beach using the sand and the pebbles, learns vital spots on the body, the study of herbs, learns to diagnose by feeling observation, and can't read my own writing. Okay. Must dig oval pit to practice, makes body soft and pliable, learns incantations, learns to do bending, twisting, and turning, learns the agility and grace. Heavy training starts from about 10 to 18. No women during this training. It's not that no women training, it's just that the individuals had to be celibate. Must learn speed, alertness, and endurance. So when you're looking from about 7 to 10 years old, the men that are designated to be his trainers are sharing with them war stories of their youth, as well as heroes within their village or under their ruling chiefs, so that even though the individual is not learning the techniques and things of that sort yet, they are being made aware of battles that have taken place, different heroes, what they were capable of, what they had done. And, we know some of Kamehameha and Keiko Haupio, and they used to go over to Maui and battle Kahekili and his group, and where Keiko Haupio almost got captured and Kamehameha came in. And, so those are exploits that were shared with the individuals. And again, all of their training in the water, the running, doing all of these other things are building. And most of the Hawaiian games were used to develop warriors. And just for sidetracking, the strength and endurance, they were taught wrestling. They were taught wrestling while seated. They were taught uma, the hand wrestling. They were taught pa'uma, the standing hand wrestling, pulling hook fingers, foot pushing, chest pushing, tug of war, foot races, lua, hakamoa, and boxing. Okay, so, and also for the preparation of the makahiki and things of this sort, where they would have different challenges and things. Now for skill, they were, use the ulamaika, the spear sliding, dart sliding, spear throwing, kakalao, doing somersaults, cartwheels, pole vaulting, silt walking, and in the water, plunging feet first with the least possible splash, plunging feet first with a great splash, diving from a submerged object, long breath, swimming, skipping or skimming a flat rock across the surface of water. The other, finding a pebble on a person, a pebble under a kappa, jackstones, loop and ball, checkers, kukui nut tops, and string figures or cats cradles. These were the things during this 7 to 10 and from 10 to 18 that was part of their training. They were, and we've gone through the 12 subject matters that the pure Lewis student was learning, right? 1, they had to be able to survive. 2, they had to be able to entertain, and 3, they had to learn how to fight. So they were taught farming skills, they were taught fishing skills, they were taught the la'au, they were taught how to take care of the akua, they were taught basic combat medicine, for a better term. So after they were taught to dance. So by the time the 11th, which was the weapons phase, and then the last phase was the hand-to-hand components, and they were taught both offensive and defensive maneuvers, as well as the war arts. So from 7 until 18, these were all of the things that they were subjected to. So probably between 15 and 18, they were also in sham battles for practice and for real. And the ultimate test was, going to war, going to battle to, gain your combat experience, and hopefully you survive. Okay, answers, questions?
Wait, Kalani, we can't hear you. Wait. Nope, still nothing, Olohe.
Anything from who?
Olohe Kalani was trying to ask something, but his mic's not working.
I see him.
You can try type it in and then you can ask.
Well, the other one, I don't know sign language. Chat.
Maybe Olohe Kalehua does. He can answer for Olohe Kalani.
And so what?
Maybe Olohe Kalani is channeling the questions to Olohe Kalehua. Nothing.
No.
Kalani said that he cannot talk.
They might be typing now.
On the chat thing, he says something about next week.
Internet connection.
I see where our great bear has extended it till the end of May. What you were seeing today is the bear running against Green for governor in 2 years, ordering the 10,000 kits, incorporating all of the health centers to do testing. Everyone working on bringing back college. So do you know, Kalehua, do you know which college he's?
I think it's that like how you saying the 12 subject matters.
Right.
Yeah, that's some of the things that we would like to
Work on.
eventually touch on and work on.
Okay.
Especially if you guys get that experts in it, or them all with it, like fishing or whatever.
Like for me, my learning is in 3 areas. As a student, a practitioner, which that was too many years ago to really count, and then sharing. So I've always said, to learn farming, you don't want to learn what I know for farming. You want to get somebody that knows what they're doing. I'm the first to say, hey, I know how to eat, and if I have to survive, I can. But my learning is as a minimal student. And fishing and stuff like that, there's enough experts out there, and those are the people that we should tap on to share with the group. So, I mean, the funny part is Ali'i's a good fisherman, a good hunter, knows farming, all of that. So, and he's got the place in Pro City, which could be a ready-made area to for the farming side.
It's a good idea, Ole.
So, and also Lao and some of the other stuff, they have a number of different herbs and other material out on the farm. And and as far as wildlife, the birds, all of the other things, he's got probably about 6 or 7 endangered species. Josh, you've seen what he's got out there, right?
Yeah, so he has, I think, all the different alai, the red beak one, white beak one, the stilt, the IO, you mentioned the ducks last week, and then Alku'u, I think like a couple others too.
Right. So anyway, so that, that's, and it's close, it's not located on the other side of the world. So, there's a lot of things there that we can tap into. Okay. So, the question is, nowadays, what can you do to maintain whatever skill level or proficiency in this domain of the 12 subject areas? Do you just concentrate on the hand-to-hand stuff? Do you concentrate on the weapons? I think some of you are going, with lions, so that's good. That's another avenue. And I think from the farming and the fishing side, I don't think you need to spend a lifetime, but I think getting exposed sufficiency so that at least your knowledge base, becomes sufficient. If you did have to survive, at least whatever you learned or, practice would be useful. And I think, the Lomi guys would be good, to come in to share. And I think more than anything else, it just gives you the ability to understand the body better as far as, what you can do and, learning the weaknesses and strengths of the body so that later on when you apply your techniques, at least you have that advantage. So, any other things we want to continue on?
Olohe Jerry, I have a question about phases, but in a battle. So, I guess we've been taught that how we're done before a battle, and you would either boast or put the other the opponents down. But then, was that always a typical way a battle took place, or just, I don't know, sometimes did armies do sneak attacks, or was that looked down upon?
It was generally under the 2 general headings. One was a battle of convenience, the other was a battle preconditioned. Whatever the reason for fighting was, to say in 6 months we're going to gather at Waianae down by the beach, and we're going to come and do our battle. But the question is, in looking at Kamehameha when the Battle of Iao, so after he had conquered Maui, what did he do before? Because his next thing was he wanted to go to Oahu and conquer that. So he sent 2 individuals to Oahu, right? One to, a priest to find out what was necessary, and what the grandmother of one of his wives or something to find others. So, so the saying was, before you go to Oahu and do all that good stuff, you got to go back to Kaihae and build Pukohola and set that up. So if you look at the Battle of Iao, which, 1790-91, now, one of the things when Kamehameha sent the emissary to Kahekili with the white and the black stone, Kahekili, said, when the black copper covers me, then that's the time when you can, commence. Now, Kahekili died in July of 1794. The Battle of Nu'uanu, the best guess is it happened, either the April or May time frame. So the thing to do is, Kamehameha had roughly 13 to 16,000 troops that he had to move from the Big Island to Maui, to Molokai, and then to Oahu. So in that preparation, and the other thing, I'm skipping ahead, but let me back up. So from the Battle of Iao, what happened? What happened? Keoa came out of Kau, right? Went to Hilo, killed the chief out of Hilo, the one with the double twist, and killed him, and went into Kamehameha's area in Kohala and Hamakua, and that is when Kamehameha had to leave Maui, go back to the Big Island, and subdued that. That's when Kaiana, came back from his European travels and all that. And of the 2 or 3 battles with Keoa, Kaiana was victorious in one, tied in the other. And then when the middle vanguard of Keoa's army got caught in that volcanic shower, that was an indication that Pele was favorable to Kamehameha versus Keoa. Now, so I'm taking a long way to get to your answer. So now you have to outfit 16,000 people. You got to train them. You have to feed them. You have to transport them. So all of these things are being put into preparation. So using the example of 6 districts, 600 subunits. So at that point, at the lowest levels, they're training their people, they're practicing for combat, going through all of that. They're securing their weapons. They're having to get the canoes. All of those things are not to move from Waihai to Lahaina. So given all of that, they move from Waihai and they go to Lahaina. Within 1 month, they wipe out the food products of that area with their men. So after about a month, they leave there and then they jump off to Molokai. And, it's only a matter of time before they deplete their stock, of food. Now in there, that is in the final preparations for the Battle of Oahu, or Nuuanu eventually. That is where the generals and the leaders are gathering and discussing strategies. Also, they have sent spies, for a better term, to Oahu to try to get a readout. Kalani Kapuli estimated anywhere from 6,000 to 9,000 warriors. When Kaiana left, he had anywhere from 1,200 to 3,000 troops. So if you subtract that, Kamehameha had roughly, 12, give or take, 1,000 troops when he went to Oahu. At that point, the Oahu troops could be anywhere from, up to 9,000, 10,000. So once Kamehameha and his group landed on Oahu, which, from Sandy, Hawaii Kai, all the way to the bottom of Diamond Head, they spent the first week gathering, doing their final preparation, sending their spies out, scouting where they would more than likely battle. Okay, then this is where the various other components that before the actual battle begins, this is where the different seers would be looking at the clouds, looking for the signs to see if their side was going to be favorable in battle or not. The orators were getting ready so that when the two sides would meet, they would go through the challenges, the insults, and the other things. The caretakers of Kuka Ilimoku were doing their rituals, incantations, things of that sort. All of the warriors also have their own family, Amakua and things of that sort. So they themselves were going through their rituals and things of that sort so that hopefully they would be victorious in battle. And, once all that commenced, then all the other stuff, was the decision to the champions of both sides, go and duel it out, and then whoever won, that's the battle. That's one case. Or the others where, you have a all-out battle. So we know, so anyway, those are the things that are going on. And then generally, not talking of the Battle of Nuuanu now, but generally as the two sides were within a couple hundred meters of each other in whatever battle formations, then the use of the ma'a, the throwing spears, and those other rocks with the cordage were, first commenced in battle. And then as the group got closer and closer, we know from a practical standpoint, if you take two individuals 100 meters or so, you can give them two spears, they can have that on the way. And by the time they meet, they have to have their fighting. Ihe. And once the two sides end up, your command and control is out the window. At that point, it's short weapons, hand to hand. And as people move through and are victorious, then after that, the old guys or the people come and, kill off those that are wounded or maimed in battle, and, they keep on going until somebody's victorious. So that's part of some of the answers to your question.
Yeah, Olohe, very complex.
No, I mean, there's a lot that, went into, the preparation, because you have the strategic as well as the tactical, components of what's going on. And, and we know for Kamehameha that after the Battle of Nuuanu, and we know that Kaiana's half-brother, the Makahea from Hilo Puna side, was leading a riot, so Kamehameha had to go back and put him down. We also know Kamehameha tried to go in his first endeavor to Kauai, which the big storm and all that other wiped it out. So from roughly 1797 until about 1803 or so, Kamehameha was preparing for his second invasion of Kauai. Now, the funny part is Kamehameha II is born in 1797, and that is where Kamehameha is with Keokulani. In their childbearing attempts, she had 11 children. Only 3 lived, Kamehameha II, the third, and the sister, Naena. So they were 8 stillborn or children that lived only a couple days or whatever the case may be. So from 1797 until roughly 1803, there's very little in the history that really explains what Kamehameha was doing. Primarily he was on the Big Island preparing, getting the canoes, getting the weapons and all of the other stuff. So, anyway, that's, some bits and pieces regarding, what, and if you read E.E. Malo and stuff, they have further examples of, the battles and things of that sort.
Hey, Malo.
Yep.
Hey, Olohe, I have another question. It's has to do with our prisoners, and there's been a lot of talk in the Hawaiian community that one way to rehabilitate our Native Hawaiian pa'ahau is to get them interested in lua, and that it presents many good qualities for them to get back into balance. And I remember having a conversation with Olohe Mitch about it, and he was not, as I recall my conversation, he was not that keen on it because he felt that, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but once a dark heart, once you get a dark heart, you kind of stay that way. What are your thoughts about using lua to rehabilitate our Native Hawaiian prisoners?
Yeah, I mean, there's what Kaleo Patterson.
Right.
I know Nalani Oles for a while. I also know that
they had the Makahiki games. I mean,
yeah, what I mean is then also Perry's sister. So, Native Hawaiian.
Mahialani.
Right. Because I remember when they were going into the prison and, meeting once a week with the, prisoners, trying to help them, prepare for the outer world. And then also Kinney Burke, where, when they were on the various prisons on the mainland, they would go up and, work with them. I don't know if you know, it's that Kai Markel.
Yeah, Kai Markel, he takes all those great photos.
Takes all those pictures. So,
Yeah.
If you look at them in the prison and stuff, they got all the tattoos, they got all that energy and, all of that. But, the real question is, if in a restricted environment, what they're doing seems to be sufficient to fulfill that need. The biggest problem then becomes, once they go out of prison, how then do you maintain that type of intensity where they would put up with the training and things of that sort? I mean, to me, I think once they got out, there would be too many distractions to have them really benefit. Some may benefit, but I think the greater majority of them, for those who don't know, right, at the prison, there's about 9 different gangs. So if you're going to go into the prison system at Halava and stuff, you got to be one of the, 8 or 9 groups that control the prison and things of that sort. So, my thing is, if you go in there and you start teaching that, to one group in there, is that going to create some unnecessary jealousy or, some other type of thing where, the prison that, there's still the fisticuffs and, the king on the mountain and all the other stuff. So if it was just the Hawaiian group and there were nobody else, I think, doing a pilot program or something would be worthwhile. But I think, you look at the Halimua here, the Halimua on Maui, you look at the different Lua groups that have been together forever. You look at the Royal Order and things of that sort, or even the civic clubs. What are the things that hold them together? And I think, in prison, you got to capture the audience. Once they leave prison, I think whatever influence you had would be overtaken by, family necessity or, going back to their old ways, or if they were dealt the black card, that they would try to eke out a existence and wouldn't work, and they would probably fall back. So, the question is, of all the things that we shared and stuff, I think that would fall out to the necessity to be accepted or survive. That wasn't 25 words or less, but that's some of my thoughts.
No, that's all good, Olohe. I appreciate that, because there's a lot of talk, just like how they talk about Ho'oponopono, to use it as a tool for disputes in the workplace and all of that. It just seems like it's a lot more complicated, and when a bunch of us went and watched that movie Out of State, and it was an examination of 2 prisoners, a case studies of 2 prisoners, and they both, I think, went to Saguaro and then came back and then studied them after they got out of prison. And it really wasn't learning Lua or doing routines or anything. It was the families and the stronger ties that they had to the family, and having a plan when they got out kept them there. Kept them out of prison, as opposed to just not having anything, and they just went back to their old ways. So it may be a little bit more complex, as you say, than a very simplistic and altruistic view of trying to get them back on the right path. Thank you. Mahalo.
Kalihua, you have experience in that field?
I would say no, because you gotta also look at the tool you're giving them. Yeah, can you guarantee that they're not going to use that on some innocent person to rob somebody or whatever, to strong arm someone? I've seen that happen too many times. I've seen it happen where somebody else training in the pod ended up getting in trouble and went back to prison because of that very thing, which is robbing somebody.
So the better part of valor is they'll have, like you said, they'll have to work within the family. And, you know, what's his name? Kalau Patterson, I know they, you know, the church and all of the other stuff and the other components, you know, I think, you know, they reach some people, but, you know, it's going to take many different ventures to, you know, help the most they can.
And I think, I mean, for me, there's a lot of other programs that might be more beneficial. I mean, they talk about Ho'oponopono. I mean, that would be good, you know, like, I forget I know what Ho'oponopono is, but I forget the English word for it. Conflict resolution, yeah. A lot of them need that. Then if you can take out the drugs, because a lot of those guys are good people. But when they're on the drugs, that's what changes them.
Goes out the window.
Yeah, everything goes out the window, including the family.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Women's eye. Molokai, grab attacker's little finger and turn away from body. Another one is throw dirt in the eyes of the attacker. Throw sand in the eyes of the attacker. Throw kikepa over attacker's head. Also use small dagger kept in the folds of their kikepa. Those, you know, those were, ain't going to change the world, but, you know, those are some of the eyes that Ken shared with us. Some of the Luhukini, this is the Lua training areas. Kanakakai is one. Kipahulu, Ke'ehiku at Kahalu. Mokomoko area is Hina, Kahua, and Kapa'au and Kohala. There was a big training school there. 3 schools in Honolulu that, you know, Kamehameha set up. A'aha'akea and the Makakai Imi and Napua Iki. Also, Waimanalo was a noted training area for Lua fighters. Don't know exactly where, but what it's been said. This is going over the Lua deities. There was Lua Nu'u Po Ele Ka Po. This was supposed to have been higher than Kuialua. It's Lua Nu'u Po Ele Ka Po. And of course, we have Kuialua, Ku Waha'ilo, Ku Imihelua. Then Kina Lua was supposed to have been a male Lua deity, as well as Popoki for the female. You know, these were some of the things that were given to us. The other Lua teachers by different names. Mana'ai was an instructor. Olohe is a Lua teacher, or Kumu Lua. Kumu A'a Ha'i Ha'i. Olohe I Vaiva, one highly skilled in Lua. And then Olohe Lua Ha'i Ha'i Po'okela, and unexcelled expert in Lua. So I forgot to follow up last week. This just came to my mind, so I think it's time to share it. Is that after we graduated in the latter part of '78, so basically Richard went out first, then Moki, then myself, and then, you know, Dennis and Mitch. But in September of '79, a year later, we had all gotten together and we said, okay, you know, we've gone through the basic stuff. What we wanted to do was to go through, you know, the next phase, the advanced level of Lua and stuff. So we met with Ken, you know, in the patio at Mitch's house, and, you know, shared with him what we wanted to do. And what had happened was, you know, he had almost gone back to like we had not even trained with him. So, you know, basically, what he envisioned doing was literally going back to all of the stuff we had done for 4 years. That was his presentation on, you know, our expected next level of training. So after that meeting, I think we came out of it more disillusioned than, you know, what was going on. So, anyway, the bunch of us talked to each other and stuff. And, we said, we don't need to go through this all over again. So basically, we just dropped it at that point. Years later, what Ramsey had shared with me, if it's true or not, I don't know, but, this is what he shared. He said when he was talking to Ken in the, a couple months before he passed away and stuff, when he was trying to put together a group to train with Ken, it seemed like Ken required Ramsey to go through a couple tests or a couple things before he put together a group. But from what Ramsey had shared was, according to Ken, is that we were coming back and we were taking. He was giving and we were just taking. So he felt that, because, we wanted more, that, it came across to him, not in a pull away probably to do that. All they want to do is take, anyway. And one of the other, not from Ramsey, but, talking to, I think with Mitch and others, the basic question was, did he put up that story of, starting all over again and, all of that, basically to say, hey, I've already taught you, you got to go out on your own and start learning by doing. So for the next 12 years, that's what we did. So, we went into the meeting with Ken with high expectations of going to the next level and came out almost going back, 5 years before starting, from zero and going from there. So, so basically what Ramsey was saying, that he was of the feeling that we were just takers, not givers per se. But, then on the other side, I think with Richard, the basic thing was, was that way of telling us, hey, it's time for you guys to sprout your own wings and go out and, practice or perfect what you've learned. So that's a story you probably haven't heard before. Have you heard that story before?
No.
Yeah, so I don't think you'll hear it from anybody else but me. But that's, and like he said, Ramsey didn't talk to any of the others. And I haven't gone back to Ramsey to, validate that or not. So, but anyway, as I was going through here, that, I wanted to share that last week. So as we're going through these Lua teachers. So, basically, Olohe is step one. The Avaiva is one above it. And then the Ha'iha'i Po'okela is, an excel. So when you look at the hierarchy within a school, this is the thing. And also in Ken's material, there was actually a person higher than that, right, who is a designated, who would probably also be a Po'okela or whatever the case may be. So, the other thing is that, what was the title we were given? Simple, Olohe, that was it. We, after learning the other nomenclature out here, because Ken didn't give us the Avaiva or the Po'okela, so with Pakuiaholo and stuff, those two titles were added on. Okay, so for myself, in all honesty, I just go by Olohe period because, that's what I was given. Even though we have given others, or others have used those Po'okela term and stuff like that, Anyway, just another bit of information. And is it right or wrong? I don't know. The reality is, those are terms out there, and if your skill level is greater than the other things, who's to say you're right or wrong in using those titles? Because in the end, it's what you're capable of doing which really defines what those titles give you.
Olohe, I got a question on that, about the titles. So that there's also, I guess people were saying, or that Ken was saying that Olohe was an older term than kumu. Kumu is more the modern day term for hula, but that there was Olohe hula. There were but
And fishermen. There were three individuals that were called Olohe: hula, fishing, and lua. Nowadays, the only one that uses it is the lua side.
and I'm kind of curious as to why the hula haven't adopted that term. They've stuck with this term kumu, which according to Ken is really more of is the source, which is a I guess a higher being.
But I'll share with you how Ken explained it. He said, "Do you want to go to the bucket of water, or do you want to go to the well? The Olohe is the well, the bucket is a kumu."
Wow.
I mean, that was how he explained it to us. But he's basically saying that the term kumu per se is more from the missionary influence when they were in the conversion of the Hawaiians over to Christianity and everything else. So they're like Rubelite taught us that for the word puli or prayer, the Hawaiians had 55 words to explain prayer. And we now use puli, but what she said, that's what they used to have. Now, when you call a farmer, you don't call him a kumu farmer or kumu mahiai. You call them by their title, right? Or fishermen, you don't call them kumu fishermen.
Right.
And lao lapa'au, you don't call them. And one of the general terms for kahuna is expert. And
Right.
And when you look at Olohe or the others, I mean, they're an expert or they're skilled in that profession. So when you look at the term generally kumu, it is more in the teaching profession. The school teacher, that.
Right.
And, then also you get into the kahu, which is more, with the church side than with the, the teaching profession. So like I said, so depending upon your skill set, the Hawaiians have different, terms for that. But Ken with us saying that kumu is more a more modern use of the word, whereas in the old days, the Hawaiians didn't call them kumu or whatever. They went more by the, like lao lapa'au or they would, the use of the word kahuna and all of that is, I think is, in the old days, everybody didn't go around. I mean, they knew that you were an expert and stuff like that. They didn't have to put the kahuna in front of it to, acknowledge your level of proficiency.
I know when Kamehameha IV translated the Book of Common Prayer for the Anglican Church, he used the term for priest as kahuna. That was his translation, which I thought was interesting.
Ruby used to tell me that when they converted the Old and New Testament, not the King James Version, they went back to the Latin and the Greek. And she said the best scholars that were around, in the 1820s and 30s.
Mm-hmm.
And she's saying, if you really want to learn Hawaiian and what it meant at that point, is to go through the Bible. The ones that were translated from, Greek and Latin or whatever, not the King James Version, of it. And I think
because the English Bible was translated from Greek, right? Greek and Roman before it got to English.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. So the Hawaiian scholars at that time, Ruby was saying, were the best brain. That's why they said for prayer, they had 55 different words just for that one, one area. So I think Malcolm, before he passed, was trying to put together like an encyclopedia or whatever with all, the terminology that was used at that time. So, and Ruby, I have a collection that's over 800 pages. It's an encyclopedia of all the different all of terms and different things, she has put together. That was something she was doing for Kwananakoa and stuff, but it is in an unfinished stage. Ruby right now is in, the early stages of dementia and stuff. So I don't think that's going to, somebody may pick it up and finish it up, but it's an interesting collection of information.
Yeah, I hope somebody does. Sounds like a treasure.
Right.
Thank you, Olohe.
So let's see. My goodness. Anything else people want to go over?
Well, I have a question, but it was about the weapons that you were talking about earlier.
Okay.
Traditionally, I mean, would they ever practice, obviously not on actual people, but I mean, practice using something to simulate how it might feel if they use it in battle? I mean, it's kind of like nurses, they use an orange to practice what it might feel like to give a person a shot in the skin.
Well,
use.
Like all those games I mentioned, you know, the makahiki, you know, that's practical, the hakamoa and, you know, the wrestling and all of that and the boxing, you know, those were for real. The other things they would do also would be sham battles, where they would go with padded first and then they would go for real. And people got killed in the, you know, where they use actual spears without a covering. So in the old days, you know, and like you said, the makahiki was also a good area to find up and coming warriors. They, you know, they would see their abilities there, and then the chiefs and you know, the people that were training future warriors could already tell, you know, from there. And like I said, in their sham battles, they were, you know, it wasn't, you know, PE 6 period where nobody can get hurt. I mean, when they went into the all-out sham battles, you know, it was for real, and they were casualties in that. Not, you know, today, you know, I mean, the sham battles are there, but they're all protected. The other training, we try to pad the weapons and things of that sort to at least, you know, do that. The other thing is that, you know, Lua primarily should be a fighting art, not a sports art. So in that point, with your mindset and what you've learned, you want to retain that. So if you ever have to use it, you don't fall back into sports or rules and regs. You know, it's just kind of falling back. You know, when you go, you go. You don't want anything, you know, holding you back. So does that help you?
Yes, mahalo. And this is not to make light of anything that was shared tonight, but the first thing I thought I could actually do was when you mentioned throwing sand or throwing dirt.
What's that?
You were sharing about the women, how they would like throw sand or dirt or put the keycap over. I'm like, I could do that. Everything else, I was like, this is way above me. I chuckled when you shared that.
Well, you know, like you said, the reality is, you know, like Professor Chow used to say, if you don't, you know, take care of somebody within less than 4 blows, you're in trouble. So, you know, a lot of times the simplistic, you know, are what works. You know,
So Olohe, you know, in a crude sense about makahiki, is that like a buffer to prevent the annihilation of the race? You know, that whole, you know, cooling off period.
right.
But really, if there was nothing there, it would just be a constant.
Oh yeah, continuous battle. Now this is quoted from Emerson, page 203. The Hawaiians, as a rule, had no sense of fairness. No blow was foul, no advantage unfair in their eyes. And this is from Peter Buck. To show you that the education of the past and that of the present are two different things. And then to the Polynesian, remaining prone on the ground was dangerous. So, I mean, to me, you know, that is why, like Moki always says, you know, Lua is not a martial art, it's a fighting art. And in that premise, what you develop and in your mindset. So if you ever have to use it, you know, like I said, in some of the quotes I've given you, you know, that's what it's for. But again, you know, you're taught an array of techniques, from breaking the little finger to breaking the neck. So do you break everybody's neck? No. You know, you have a graduated array of techniques that you can use. And once you become skilled, or what I call muscle memory, you don't know really what you're going to use. But based upon all the stimulus and everything else you're getting, you're going to do something. And as a modern saying goes, you know, do you want to be carried by 6 or judged by 12? So, whatever technique you end up using, the whole idea is, self-preservation for you, your family, or those that are important, that, you would use those skills to that level. So I'm just trying to look for, there's two terms. Makiola is life or death. And, there was no in between when they would go into that. And then the other term was Mulia. Excuse me, I got notes all over the place. Right. Okay, Makiola was a philosophy literally meaning life and death, and meant go for broke with all you've got, giving everything that is in you. Mulia ia keola, another philosophy meaning a willingness to die on the part of a supporter. So the latter one was basically a willingness on your part to put your life on the line for, a supporter. So that is why in the old battle formations and things of that sort, with that philosophy, those to your left and right of you, those to the front or those to the rear of you, the understanding was that any one of them would give their life to protect you, as well as you would be willing to give your life to protect them.
What was the second?
It's Molia, ia keola.
Molia ola keola, ia keola.
Yeah, ia keola, Molia ia keola. Meaning a willingness to die on the part of a supporter. And there were two types of tournaments. And here's another one. Ancient Hawaii was an orderly society, for everything had a place and everything was in its place. Duties were exactly understood and precisely executed. No one overstepped his bound, unless in willful disobedience, in which case the punishment was quick and severe. Anyway.
It says it all, Olohe, right there.
Yep. Well, as we normally say, Mickey Mouse only has 1 minute to put his big hand on the 12. I think it's 9 o'clock right now. We've gone 2.5 hours, believe it or not. So what's everybody's wishes?
It's been wonderful, Olohe. Thank you again, as always. Thank you for letting us ask questions.
Thanks, Lloyd. That was good. It's awesome.
We got to go talk to the mayor. I think he's going to drop it back to May 15th. But that way. So, are you guys still working out on Sunday?
No. Too much risk for boy Dennis.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's two types: no, yes, and no, no. No, I just. So, anyway, that's all I have for this evening. How many people ended up? 10, 12?
I think like 13 or 14.
Oh, okay.
15, but yeah.
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 So, Kalihua, does your wife still need more wine?
No.
Okay.
No need. We good. We good on the wine.
Okay, just we don't have an endless supply, but there's still more.
If you ever want to dump it, Olohe, just let us know.
Okay.
Take it off your hand.
I will.
Funny part is my wife had some in '79 when we moved to Maui. We moved back. We were in town, and we still have it. So that stuff must be 40-something years old. But anyway.
I think Dennis Hansen, he regretted taking us to the winery when we went up. We drank all stock and barrel.
Liebert Landgraf's father, who was the head forester on Big Island, 1967, we went up there for a Christmas party to go pig hunting. So the guys went out about 100 yards and there were pigs all by the fence. So they didn't go very far. Anyway, they went back and his father had Olohe Jerry wine, 25 years old, for special occasions. We went back there and said, hey, look, you want? Everybody started drinking, almost finished it all. His father came home and almost went through the roof. You guys know how, anyway. But Olohe Jerry wine is good. So
It's a great story, Olohe. We'll have to remind Liebert about that.
that's it. Yeah. That's when we're preparing for our Christmas party. So his dad was not too happy. But anyway. Okay, sir. We're going to sign off and wish everybody well.
All right.
Yeah, mahalo,
Thanks,
Olohe.
Eloy.
Hey, good night.
Thank you, everybody.
Mahalo nui, Olohe.
Yep.
Hui ho.
Ke oi o.
Ahui ho.
Ah.
Stay safe.
You too.